Okay, everybody. I hope that you can see this. If you're here, if you can see me and we're coming through, wave. Say hi in the chat. And please share the link. I'm so sorry. Share it with whoever. Am I live? Am I existing? Do I exist? I'm going to bring everybody in. We're going to chat for a little bit while we wait for people to catch up.
Hi.
Hello, TLE folks.
You're muted.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Okay. So if you're here, I apologize. I clicked a button that destroyed everything, and we had to recover fast. So I apologize. We'll do our proper intro when everybody gets here. I think we can. I do exist. Thank you. Oh, thank you. You guys for rolling with it. It's our first time back. Something had to go wrong, right? All right. So let's do a proper intro. Here we go. We'll remove everybody. Here comes our proper intro. Welcome to Better Together. This is season 3 of TLEtv. And if you're, hopefully you made it back here after my messing things up. We are an evolving collaborative community talk show that may change over time, but will always focus on topics to start conversations and inspire insights. Season 3 is focused on full panel discussions on specific topics and concepts from the Michael teachings. We hope to cover many topics this season that contribute to our ability and willingness to be better together. Guest panelists are invited based on their relationship to the topic and their representation of the topic being discussed. I'm Troy. My pronouns are he, they. I'm a server cast sage from Cadre 1, Entity 2, and your TruthLoveEnergy host and channel for the Michael entity. For more information on anything or anyone in this video, see the description in the final video post for links. Now let's get the show started. And let's bring on Bobby. Welcome, Bobby.
Everybody. Hey, I'm Bobby. I am a server cast artisan from Cadre 2, Entity 2, and my pronouns are he, him.
And now let's bring on Ro.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ro. I am an artisan, cast priest, and fairy queen. I'm here with you today.
That's right. Thanks for making an appearance. And Kate, welcome.
Hi. Hello. My name is Kate. I am a priest cast sage from Cadre 2, Entity 2, and I'm a rock star.
There you are. You are. Now, sadly, we have lost Connor as a panelist, and we've replaced, well, Connor's not replaceable, but we have a new panelist that is here to stay. You know her as a ball of sunshine across all of TLE and the planet. Welcome, Cypress.
Hi, I'm Cypress. I'm Cadre 1, Entity 2, Sagecast Sage, and my pronouns are she, her.
Okay. Did everybody make it back? I want everybody to say hi or something so I know you're there. Because I feel really bad that I booted everyone. Everybody was all cozy. And I booted everyone out. All right. Well, what we're going to do while I wait for hellos from everybody is get started. And we're going to ask the panelists, what's good? What's been good since we last saw you? Share something important and meaningful that others might be inspired by as well. Because no matter how bad things are, there's always like something good. Who wants to go first? I see Bobby grinning super big.
I'm happy to go first, but I think everyone
All right.
probably already knows what's good. And I'm probably speaking for both me and Troy, but I know Troy's going to have a separate what's good. But pictures probably speak better than words in this case. So, what's good in our life, as so many people in TLEtv probably know by now if they follow Troy on any social media platforms, is 3 months ago, almost to the day, December 29th, we adopted Healing. And I'm sure most people know her story, but in case if you don't, we worked through some American and South Korean rescue agencies, Faith K9 here in the States, which is a volunteer organization, and then some South Korean rescues to adopt her. And she flew over and we picked her up at JFK Airport here in New York. But she has a pretty traumatic backstory. Her first 4 years of life, she was held captive in a cage on a dog meat farm where she was caged with a breeding partner, and they basically just lived their lives to breed and have puppies that were sold off as meat. And during her captivity, she had a broken front left leg. Her front elbow was broken. And at a certain point, they had determined that she was no longer viable or useful. And so she, along with about 60 other animals, were basically getting taken to be slaughtered. And that's when the Korean rescue organization caught wind of it and stepped in and rescued all of them. And she spent the next 3 years of her life in rehabilitation. She had corrective surgery on her front left elbow. She had a section of her large intestines removed, and it was just a long road to recovery for her. And she went through a series of foster cares. And so fast forward, she's 7+ years old, and then we finally learn about her. And Troy saw her picture, and he instantly fell in love and said, "That's the dog." And it was very fast. And then like 2 weeks of signing papers, going through interviews and stuff, we were able to adopt her, and she flew over, and the past 3 months have just been amazing. And her name is Healing. That was the name that they had given her while still in Korean foster care, and it just seems to describe her life and her story so well that we kept it. And the truth is, she's probably been healing us as much as us coming into her life has been healing her. And but here are some additional pictures of her at our local dog park in Maria Hernandez Park here in Bushwick, Brooklyn. Look at that face.
Oh my God, I love her.
And then look at that nose. Look at that nose.
A little schnoz.
Most movable nose.
And she just recently, we had corrective surgery done on her elbow to have the implant screws removed because the surgeons had determined that they were probably a greater source of discomfort and pain for her at this point than a help. Mm. And that's been about 4 weeks ago that surgery took place. And we've just been noticing a huge difference. She will always have a limp, but the limp and the general sense of like pain that we sense from her seems to be dissipating significantly. So she's in really good spirits, and we just feel like her life is just getting better and better day by day.
Because they thought she might have to have her leg amputated, but she's doing really well, and we'll know after at her next checkup if she can keep her leg.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's what's good in our world.
Yes, very good.
mhm.
Oh,
Who's next?
that's our healing.
Oh my God, I love her so much.
Oh.
I know.
She is so wonderful to be around. Like, she's just so wonderful. I mean, she's everything.
Well, would you like to share what's good for you next?
Sure, I will.
Okay.
Well, first off, I am loved that she is part of our family now. So even though I am down the street auntie, I still love her so much, and I love that she's just with us. It's so great. And I'm very excited because I'll be heading home to visit my parents next week on vacation. I love seeing them, and shout out to mom and dad, probably watching. And
Oh, that's right.
and
Hi, Mary. Hi, Steve.
I'll see you soon. So I'm super excited about that. And I am taking some time in my apartment. This is from sessions that have been going on over the last several months and stuff. I really realized how I have not owned my space in a nice way. Like I wasn't treating it well. I mean, I love my apartment. I love how it looks. I love the vibe. I love how Bobby decorated all my things in it. I love all that stuff. But I was just not caring for it well enough. And so I've been cleaning closets and reorganizing, and it's making me feel like I'm helping myself. And I think that's super positive.
That is nice.
That is.
Kate, what's good for you?
Yeah, I similarly, Cypress, what you just said, I just thought of that that resonated for me too. I've really this year specifically, like 2023 since it started, have been going through I share an apartment, but I've been trying to like upkeep the space more and be more like cognizant of just like putting things away when they're done and reorganizing and like keeping everything looking nice and feeling clean and like aesthetically pleasing to whatever that means for us. But doing that and being like consciously aware of that. So that's been good. I also have been getting back into my photography, which I haven't done in a few years with like um, I think it's called a DSLR, just like a traditional kind of camera.
Mhm.
And so I've been getting back into that, and that's been really like fulfilling and just a little hobby. I just started working, well, kind of just started like a month and a half ago. I began working on another theater show for the first like time in a hot minute. This is the first kind of more professional show that I've done, and I've shared a couple posts about getting back into it on TLE and my blog and stuff. Just
Oh,
being so nervous about it because I haven't done a professional show ever, and since I've graduated college, so there's a lot of pressure that I'm putting on myself to like fit into what kind of mold that means. But by doing that, I'm trying to understand how that mold doesn't even exist for like anybody doing professional
right.
theater. So that has been, it's just been a really great experience, and it really falls in line with community because I want to be a part of the community in Philly doing theater, and like the greater Philly could extend to New York maybe, and like down south a little bit. So working on that has been
Nice.
really cool. And tomorrow I have my first official band practice with like some live instrumentation. So
Oh my
I'm
God.
Woo!
so
If
ready.
Bobby and I could come to your
Cool.
performance, oh my gosh,
It
I'd
would-
be so happy.
I would, don't even tell me because I will cry.
Please
You're there.
keep me in the loop. Keep us in the loop.
I totally will. I will.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Ro, what's good for you?
Oh, a couple of things are very good for me. So the highlight of this week was I went to Aurora's concert here
Right.
in Lima with my brother. It was amazing. You can't imagine. And, you know, when I purchased the tickets like 2 months ago, I couldn't imagine that she was actually going to be here in my city, you know. And we went there and it was amazing. You can imagine, so empowering and grounding and also very healing, you know, being with people there and just, you know, enjoying ourselves. And also her beautiful words, her commentary was so lovely. And I really enjoyed that. And yeah, that was really good for me. And also this week, piggybacking on what you were saying, Kate and Cyprus, I also wanted to bring more of me to my environment, to my home, you know, because I live with other people here. So sometimes I feel like maybe I'm, you know, disturbing them if I put something here that is like mine or more expressive or more shiny and sparkly, like, you know, my style. But I'm like, you know, I get, you know, I can be myself and I can bring more of me here. And I want I want my place to feel like, you know, like it reflects my personality too. And yeah, that was nice. And also, you know, taking care of my health, giving myself some time to, you know, rest, because lately I felt that I was doing a lot of things and getting lots of ideas, lots of projects too. But yeah, I also need time to, you know, just be there, and I'm enjoying that too.
Aw. We're kind of doing something like that too. I'm just realizing there's a trend here because
Yeah.
we are shifting every room in our house, in our apartment, so that we can get more use out of the space and more meaningful use out of it. Because our bedroom is the place where we are the least, and it's the biggest room in the apartment. And we're like, what are we doing? So we're shifting our bedroom to this room, which is the smallest room in the house, and I'm shifting into Bobby's old office, which is like 2 or 3 times bigger than this room. And then his office is going into the old bedroom because he has an entire library system. So he has to have the biggest room. But anyway, we're doing that for the same reasons, like just getting more mindful use out of our space.
And playful use.
Huh?
And playful use. Like,
yes, playful use for sure.
Have physical space to like do VR. We can exercise.
Yes.
You know.
So what's good for me, or what I want to point out that's good, is the controversial entire movement of our community from one platform to another.
Yeah.
I know there's controversy over it. I know there are some people who do not like it and do not like change, and that there are things that we've had to compromise for the move, but there are many things that have been gained, and there's so many benefits, and I think in the long run it'll be worth it. But I have to say that it is a good thing because we're on the other side of it, so it's better be good. But I hope everybody is adapting.
Doing all that. Thank you.
I feel like it's been a really, other than a few hiccups, it's been a really beautiful, smooth move. And the work that the archivists are doing for the separate library is just incredible. Janet, I don't even know what to do to thank her. Like, it's going to take lifetimes. But the new library, it's not even done yet, but it's well on its way, and it's incredible. There'll be links in the description if you don't know what I'm talking about. But it's free to everybody, and it's a great resource for studying. And you can always copy and paste excerpts into the community platform where we can share and discuss it. So we have our community platform and our resource platform, and I love that. So that's what's good, I think.
And
and speaking of, go ahead. What?
I just wanted to say, because I'm an agent of stability myself. I'm not the first adopter of change. I like things to stay the way they are, but I have to say that it may take a little bit of time for someone to navigate the new site, but once you do and you understand the structure of it, the skeletal framework of it, I find it personally to be so socially engaging, and it promotes social activity and interactivity. And knowing that the library is always there. Yes, it's in a separate location, but it's there, it's accessible. But this is to really foster the sense of community building and relating to one another. I think that is such a huge win. And so long as people just are patient with themselves and familiarizing themselves with how to navigate the new site, what this function allows me to do, what this function allows me to do, I think they're going to reap the benefits of just feeling so engaged with the people, the other community members on the site.
I hope so. So far, so good. So far, I'm happy. I'm happy with it. I get really personally like triggered when people don't like it, not because I want them to like it, but because I feel responsible for them liking it. And I just feel like, oh, what can I do? I don't know what I can do. And sometimes I have solutions, sometimes I don't. So I have to like be really clear with myself and what I can do and can't do.
But I do think, sir, I agree with Bobby. I'm not a big fan of change either, as you well know. And I was not very active on the site before, no matter how much the Michael teachings has been a part of my life. The site was not very easy for me. And so I just didn't take the time to sit and figure it all out. And this was so intuitive for me. And I think it's going to really open up so much for so many people who were not very active. Even if I'm not active every day, it's there all the time. And I see stuff and I'm like, oh, that's interesting to me. And it's just so wonderful. I love it so much.
I'm glad to hear that. Speaking of community, let's slip into the topic for today. Today, we're going to talk about community. So let me shift myself here to the middle here. There we go. Actually, let me try. I'm still learning these controls. Let's see. There we go. How about that? The green screen's messing up a little bit. All right. So today we're going to talk about community. Community is defined as a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. So I was like, well, that's interesting, but I wanted to get more insight from Michael about what is at the core of community, because you don't have to be close to each other, and you can be really far from each other and still be a part of a community. And Michael pointed out that at the core of every community is something that they call commonalities. I mean, that's just, it doesn't matter whether you're living close together or whether you're far apart, it's the commonalities that bond you. And they said that there are 3 types of communities that form around commonalities: location-based commonalities, chosen commonalities, and inherent commonalities. Those are at the core of any community. Virtual and digital spaces allow for communities to exist as living, meaningful, and impactful realities without depending on location as a commonality. The Black community and the LGBTQ community are great examples of how communities are born of our inherent commonalities. These are things that we have in common without having chosen them. And then the TLE is a great example of a community built around a chosen commonality. We choose this teaching. We don't necessarily choose everything that bonds us together, but at the core of TLE, it's because we're a chosen community. We're a chosen family. None of these are better or worse than the others, of course. Within every community of commonalities, there will be micro communities based on the other 2 commonalities. This means that some people may share a common location or share inherent commonalities in a community built upon chosen commonalities. That's something I've really never thought about before. So today we're going to talk about the variations of community, what it means to us to be a part of a community, which commonality we feel is the most important to us, and what it means to navigate a disruption or a change in the community, like a big move across platforms. And we're going to cover the 9 needs that Michael says every community must have fulfilled for it to be healthy, happy, and sustainable. So these next questions are going to go out to viewers and to the panel. Let me get us set up here. So our first question is, what does community mean to you? Not the definition, but your feelings and thoughts about being a part of any community. Like, what does it mean to you? Some people, it's not so important. Some people, it's very important. So I'm just wondering where everybody stands with that, as in the viewers and in the on the panel?
For me, first and foremost, it's about feeling like it's a safe space where I can be myself, and I know that I'm protected and celebrated for being myself. And through that sense of, because I know that I can be myself, it opens up the sense of freedom to express myself, give back to the community. Like, I feel like unless you're able to be your authentic self, there's always going to be like a somewhat of a barrier between you and the rest of the world,
Right.
the community, right? And so when that barrier is removed, you can really give the best of yourself back and be a meaningful contributor to other people in the community as well. But it all starts with, am I safe here? Am I feeling heard? Am I feeling seen? Do I feel like I'm given the permission to be and act as myself in the best way that I can?
Keep that in mind, what your response was, because that's going to play into the 9 needs. That's really interesting to see how that plays out for you. Anybody else want to chime in? What community means to them?
Well, I agree with Bobby. I mean, I had a similar idea about, the safety, but also there's like a comfort in community that I think is just inherent with the safe feeling. So to me, that is also part of it. You feel like you're being, you're comfortable and safe in this little space.
Yeah. Well, for me to chime in on this response, it's, I mean, there are so many things I can think of that matter to me regarding community, because that's my whole focus, is like community building. But I think it's the sense of belonging that's the most important to me. Like, you might not feel like you belong everywhere in your life, but the communities you gravitate toward is because you feel like you belong, like it's a space that's there with you and for you and about you and about everybody else who's similar to you in some way. So belonging is what community means to me.
Yeah.
I'm
Kristen
right there
has
with
something.
you, Troy, with that feeling of belonging and also feeling myself reflected and represented by others. And I love that, that resonance that we can create. And it makes you feel like, yeah, you belong and you are cared for, you're supported, you're part of something bigger than you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that, where it reflects you. Yeah, not like an echo chamber, but just reflects you. It inspires you.
Yeah,
in
people
the
that
way
see
that
you.
inspiration works.
Yeah, I think for me, I absolutely agree with everything you all said too. And then equally, as I think Bobby said, the acceptance part of it being so true. And we're probably going to talk about this in a little bit, but we were sprinkling in the green room about the different kinds of people in communities, and there being like a community fool or community artist, community, I forget the other ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Community full.
Community fool. And I feel like there's something too about when community you either look for or you find, or like you choose it, or it's inherent, like those 3 qualities are. And I think for me, I'm realizing that community sparks when those roles kind of like play off of each other. And as much as the other things are true, like the acceptance and safety and belonging and like being able to play as much as like reflect with each other, and that sense of just like there's a ground under us in some way.
Yeah.
Like we can walk on this together and move forward and support each other's growth too. I think it's important.
You've made me now curious to ask Michael in the future if there are community roles. Like, is it like the 12 support positions and people fall into one of those 12 categories in a community? I'm very curious about that now. I never thought about that. So any answers from the viewers?
I highlighted it a second ago, but Christian is saying a lot of the same stuff we are. Somewhere safe and somewhere with common things. Common purpose, common sense of belonging.
Well, if there are no more responses from viewers, then what, moving on to a more specific community, what does TLE community mean to you? It means so much to me, and I have a list of reasons that it means so much to me, but how would you describe it, like briefly, what it means to all of you who give so much, and you're so generous with your time to even be here on this show? So amazing.
To me, TLE feels like home. Because there is this connection between past lives and this life and my other lives with the people that I know from TLE. And it's just a way to connect all those things. So it makes me feel like home.
Oh, I like that.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's I feel that, like, the connection part of it and evolving with it. To me, it feels like evolving and revolving, and like it's been, the community has always been there, and how we each choose to show up in it is different and important to each of us. And then we find all the people who reflect and admire that and play with it and create with it. And it is like, it's so emotional to connect with people, and not being able to really ever meet anybody in person is so magical and cool and special and unique. And it just is like, there, it feels like a tree that has been growing and
Oh, I love
just,
that.
yeah, and it blooms, and every time somebody new comes on, it feels like a new little like blossom.
Oh, I love that.
And then we all get to admire it and look at, like, wow, like, we've created this and we're nourishing it, and watching each other, some I feel like I'm really leaning into this, some flowers fall off and like float away, and then others like fall onto the ground and become a new, like, plant new seeds in new places.
I feel a TLE theme song coming on.
It's gonna happen.
You got half the lyrics just now.
It's gonna. You're right. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah. Yeah.
Tree Ellie. We're Tree Ellie.
Really.
Really.
Any comments from the community?
Yeah, a couple more people have chimed in. So we have Carrie saying, a group with a common identity or purpose. Christian said, given my struggles with depression and the third I am, this community was a stable touchstone.
Oh, that's nice.
Touchstone. That's cool.
Look who popped in. Mary Douglas.
Yay!
Billy has helped me to learn to be the best version of me that I can be.
Oh.
And then Maureen has a couple of comments. The first community, astrology in my early 20s, I really belonged to. I and everyone else was allowed to be different. This is what is important to be, not to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
I don't look for reflection, like seeing the same thing reflected back to me, I guess. I love a community that has room for everyone, a community that can see everyone, and it's okay to be different.
Yep, that's in the 9 needs. We'll get to that too. But when we were talking about reflection, we didn't mean everybody looks like you or acts like you. I think it was more about you see the potential in yourself because other people around you support that potential. It's like an inspirational thing. It's a reflection of best of you, not the same of you.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about what TLE kind of means to me, or the Michael teachings in general, is I've kind of talked about this in a variety of ways in the past, but like there was a part of me that always felt like there was more to me and more to this existence than the physical self. And what I love about TLE is it gives us the tools and the freedom and the space to explore everything about us and about life that is non-physical. Because I think we spend so much of our day just thinking literally and physically, but so much of our life doesn't exist like that. And I love that I've learned that TLE is like this haven where I finally can start putting the pieces together to understand the parts of me that aren't a physical Bobby living on physical Earth, and everything else about me and about us and about life and lives. I this is a space where I can start to understand that and get educated about that and feel comfortable. It's like, oh, I like when Cypress was saying this is home. Like I've always had this sense about me my whole life, and this is finally giving me that validation. Like, yes, there was always more, and this is giving me a space to explore what that more is.
Yeah.
So we've got home, aliveness, I guess, with the tree, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Touchstone. What else? What was Bobby's? What was yours?
Everything I just said.
Like expansion.
Expansion. That's a good one. Yeah.
Expansion.
It also
And
feels
Ro,
like
did-
sanctuary to me. It's like
sanctuary.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
it's
good.
this place where I can simply be, and you know how important that is to me to just simply feel like I am existing, I am being. I don't have to justify myself
Right.
or over-explain myself. I simply feel understood, and I can understand others where they are at, right? And with this energy I feel in TLE, I know that I can be part of other communities and also be like carry my whole self into those communities and create my own communities too from this place of, knowing that, yeah, I can be fully myself, I can trust myself with others. And yeah, it just inspires me a lot to, to keep going and, being myself.
Oh, I love that.
We have some new audience
Comments.
Yeah, these are some good ones. Uma says, "Hi, Uma." Michael says, "Inclusion is love, and the community is inclusive and loving."
Aw, Uma.
Karen says, "For me, the TLE Michael community is the only place I freely can be myself. Everyone else in my life only see a select few sides of me. I don't have to hide here."
Oh, I love that.
And
That common thread.
Carrie says, "One thing I've learned about communities based on identity, that just because we all identify the same way doesn't mean we experience exactly the same things or that we will get along.
Yeah.
Communities are also about finding intimacy in whatever form it takes." That's a really good one.
Yeah, and what you just said, Carrie, ties into my next question for everybody, which is we all belong to many communities, but if you had to describe or name 3 communities that you feel are priorities, what would they be? For example, I was going to say, obviously, TLE is a community I belong to, and that is super important to me. But I also belong to the LGBTQ community, and I belong to the animal rights, vegan community, because that's very important to me. But like Carrie said, the inherent commonalities, just because you're gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans, doesn't mean you get along. It doesn't mean that you ever even get treated like an equal or that you belong. So I'm a part of the community, but I don't always feel like I belong, even though it's one of my priority communities. So I have to find my micro communities in those. And the same with the animal rights movement. There's a lot of controversy and different approaches. And for the most part, I feel like I belong. But at the same time, people are very passionate and to different degrees. And sometimes that causes conflicts. And sometimes you don't feel like you belong. So TLE is a place where but my question for myself and to everybody else is that a lot of the reasons why I feel like I don't belong are my reasons. They don't have anything to do with anybody else, but there's also external reasons too. I'm just wondering if any of you experience that too, where sometimes your sense of belonging isn't dependent on how people embrace you. It's based on your security, like insecurities and stuff too.
Definitely.
But what are your top 3 like communities that you feel like you belong to?
Well,
if you have 3, and maybe you don't.
Well, I agree. Actually, 2 of mine are the same. So, because TLE is this very important community to me, and the Michael people, the Michael teachings, all that. It's a huge part of who I am, how I see myself, how I show up in the world. It's probably the most important. It's my belief system. It's how I go through my day. And even if I'm at work doing, mundane tasks, it's still a huge part of who I am and how I interact with people. And also, animal rights is super important to me and has been for a long time. And so that will always be a big part of who I am. And I really was thinking, what else really matters to me? And I've noticed, especially in the last several years, being a woman and being part of that community really, really is defining and matters to me. Obviously, I show up in the world this way, but in seeing how women have been treated, things like that, and being able to support other women and being able to support people in that community has meant a lot to me, especially because I work in a very male-dominated field, and there are very few women, and we have very tiny voices, and no one wants to listen to us. And for us to be able to be there and support each other has really mattered a lot to me.
And we all know, just like Carrie said, because you're women doesn't mean you get along, as we saw from voters.
That is true. But it's still an important community to be aware of for me.
Yeah.
And to be supportive of for me.
That's what I love about progressive women, because they're there for the rights of every woman, even the ones who hate them. But the conservative women, the right-wing women aren't. But progressive women are all inclusive. That's what matters. I love that.
That would actually kind of be my third community outside of like animal rights and veganism and the metaphysical TLE Michael community. It would be, and it's kind of a umbrella community. There's not like one defining group or institution that governs it, but just progressive, liberal thinking, ideological people, right? And I guess if you want to say in America, that's the Democratic Party, whatever, however you want to define that. But like, it's interesting. I think we've talked about this in the past too, how to me, it kind of feels like the difference between conservative and progressive thinking is kind of mimics the differences between the negative pole and the positive pole. The negative pole only sees itself and only has space for itself, but the positive pole allows for inclusion of the negative pole. And kind of like what you said, women or people who are progressive in general say, hey, you can think however you want, or you can carry out your life however you want, but that doesn't mean that you should be able to tell me how I get to carry out my life, right? Like, I mean, and I love that, and I think it ties back to what Kate just defined for me as expansion, or like progressive to me feels like expansion, like working more and more to always include more and more people, right? To continue to expand the boundaries. And then I did want to say one thing. When you were talking about just because you join a community doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get along or belong. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I was I had already come out to myself in terms of my sexuality, but when I was slowly trusting in my friends and starting to come out to my friends' community, one of the things that actually slowed me down or hindered that process was just a resistance. At that time, and we're talking the early to mid 90s now, I sort of felt pressured that once I came out as gay, or at least my friends knew that I was gay, there was this preconceived condition where I had to like all of these certain things that are gay things, or that because you're gay, that means your favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz. You love to like go to clubs and hook up with people. You love to, Ab Fab is your favorite TV show of all time.
Well,
I mean, it is good.
I mean,
it's no Battlestar Galactica. But, so as I was coming out, it's like, but wait, I spent my first 18 to 20 years feeling trapped in one identity. I'm not going to come out just to be forced and be told that I have to take on this. Like, I am who I am regardless of my sex. Like, I like the things I like. I do the types of activities I like to do. it's not because I thought I was straight or I'm gay that defines those activities or my personality. And so I had some resistance in coming out because I didn't want people to assume that in being gay that meant X, Y, and Z about me, you know? And so I think in joining communities, I think we also need to remind each other that like was said and like Carrie was alluding to, just because we're all in one community doesn't make us sort of like homogeneous, right? We're still going to be very diverse in our thoughts and our ideas within that community.
Or homogenous.
Or homogenous, yes.
Yeah. Can I piggyback right off of you, Bobby? That is goes in my top 3 exactly what you and Troy were just talking about. I think we are saying it. Like my top 3 are obviously TLE, spiritual community, the expansion of that, and also the theater community, and specifically kind of the one in Philly, but it expands to like all performing arts all over the world, and then the queer community. And in the past 3 years, as I've been meeting more people in Philly who are part of the queer community, specifically people who identify as either non-binary, some trans women, and then mostly lesbians in like that circuit, which I identify as demisexual and pan. So I'm like, whoever. But it does, like, as soon as I found these people and I was like, yes, like I'm gonna find community, it literally felt like, okay, you have to put on this coat and you have to look, you gotta
look the part.
You gotta look the part. Everybody was talking about the L word and I was like, never heard of it. And
it is daunting. It is daunting because it's a culture. It's a culture, and you're like a new person in a culture that you have to either adapt to or contribute to. And I prefer to contribute to it because I can't always find interest in what is expected of me to find interesting. So that's what you got to do. Just contribute. Add your own spin to it.
Yeah, and that is, I think it's really interesting because this specific group of people I'm thinking and talking about have all just happened to have met, like everybody's existed in their own micro queer communities, but have just come together this past year and met each other through this camping trip we all went on. And it still feels like all of this like intermingling is happening, and like everybody talks about the culture and like the things that are expected of queer women, but we're kind of still working through those expected barriers. And it's really interesting to start to see people's true selves come out of that and like break it and be like, I don't know what you guys are talking about kind of thing. And it's so refreshing when it happens, because then the bubble bursts in the room and we're all like, oh yeah, we're just like here.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to be, is here doing ourselves.
There's no one definition we all have to subscribe to.
Yeah.
Well, I think it used to be important in terms of like communities like that, because that's the way you identified each other, especially in a world where you're threatened. You behave in certain ways that allows you to identify each other and show you're on the same level and that your interests are common. And I think that was really important for a long time for any oppressed group to have that like kind of a more of a static culture with static roles. But that's changing dramatically, very quickly, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a friend of Dorothy or even know what that means.
Thank you.
To be. I also just want to note something before we move on: how tiny and short my head is amongst you all. What is this?
Adjust the camera.
I'm like, hi, everybody.
Come down here.
Okay, Ro, did we hear from you yet?
Oh, well, I don't know how to answer that question actually, because I kind of feel like I don't know, I love so many things, so it's hard to me to make a hierarchy of what is most important in my life. But these days I feel the focus is, of course, it's TLE, and also my community Love and Soul, and also animals, and I've been hanging out with my friends with that are into yoga and energy healing, and that's another community here that's very lovely too. And I was reading Maureen's comments here that are very, very interesting, and I kind of relate to that feeling that the whole world is the community, and it's so important to remember that yeah, we are one and we are accepted, and yeah, it's there for us, and we are for it. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go through the viewer comments. Wait,
Yeah.
I missed it. What was Maureen?
So this was Maureen's. Maureen said her communities are TLE, one-on-one with friends, and the world. This may sound strange, but I feel the world is a community because I know at the core level we are all accepted, whether anyone realizes it or not.
Well, that would go in with the inherent commonalities. We're like, not only is that location based, I mean, we're Earthlings, but we're also humans. So it's like species based. We have that in common.
Mhm.
We share this planet and its resources. I mean, there's so much that contributes to us being, and that we should be thinking of ourselves as a community for sure.
More
A global
people should
community.
think that way.
A lot of people have chimed in, so this is a very
Okay,
engaging topic.
Woo!
Lori, hi Lori.
Hi,
says,
Lori.
Reminds me of the good old days. Remember where we started on the internet, Troy, when we went from IRC to the micro teachings groups on Spirit Web? I loved setting all that up. I'd never felt like I ever belonged as much, and that continues because of you and others now, Troy.
Oh, my heart. Yes, of course I remember all that. And we're still on IRC, by the way. That's where our community events happen. Good old IRC.
For Christian, his communities are, of course, TLE and then his family.
Mm.
Lori also had another comment here. I think the type of position those of us who started micro communities and other communities, we may be pivotal facilitators for many people.
Oh, yeah. I think that's true of a lot of people. We end up meeting people and shifting them in different directions without even trying. It's just that they would never have known or been exposed to something without meeting us. And that's what pivotal facilitators do.
Carrie has a lot on this topic. She says,
Ooh.
I'm part of so many communities, and how important they have been has waxed and waned over the years.
Yeah.
The ones I'm probably most active in at the moment are queer community and TLE. She said, I have so much to say about this topic. I wish I was a panelist right now. The gatekeeping is really annoying, except when it's actually helpful, like keeping out people who are trolls.
Yeah.
True.
Yes. I'm a gatekeeper against trolls in the community. I have no shame in eliminating someone who even hints of the stink of bigotry.
Christian said, I used to say I was part of the atheist community, then Gamergate happened, and realized the pieces of shit people are in there. So I no longer claim that community, though I am an atheist.
That's unfortunate. I'm sure there are other more less toxic variations on the atheist community, but yeah, that Gamergate thing.
And then Maureen also added, I guess it's seeing that we are all one in truth. I look for kindness and love, and most of the time I find it.
Oh.
And then Lori says, good old IRC.
Oh, love you too, Lori. Did we get it?
I think
we got through. What? All caught up?
Yep.
All right. So moving on, let's talk about what Michael describes as the 9 needs that every community must fulfill for it to be healthy, happy, and sustainable. This is also true of any city, any country. If these 9 needs aren't addressed in whatever context a community is being built, it will fail. And so countries, governments, communities, families, even, if these 9 needs aren't addressed in some way, if there's not an outlet for fulfilling those needs provided by the community or for each other, it will fail. And I find this really fascinating to look at different communities that have succeeded and failed, and you can see like where the weak link was in what wasn't provided. So Michael says that these 9 needs must be met in some way by the community, for the community, so that it may thrive and maintain sustainability. Oh, I have something fancy. Hold on, people. Oh, hold on. Look at that.
Ooh.
I wish I had a round of applause, a button click.
We can.
Yay! Yay! Oh, so amazing.
Yay.
So, community, the 9 needs. Let's go over the first set. And we're going to address each one individually. So everybody be prepared for your comments. The first set, we're going to call safe. Interesting that everybody was talking about safety in the communities that they are part of. So the first, and these aren't in order of importance. They're just in order of easy remembering using an acronym. So security, nurturing a safe space for members. That's really vital to any community. There has to be security. For TLE, we have Team TLE, who takes care of people, all the stuff behind the scenes, and takes care of me. There's Troy, me, who's like a watchdog. I will kick ass and take names from anybody that bothers anybody. And sometimes that's me, and I've had to control myself. But anyway. And then we have TLE 12. That's our new security system moderator people who are there if we need them. And luckily, it's a very dormant group because we don't usually have issues. But security is really important. Does everybody agree with that?
Yeah.
And do you feel that's provided in TLE?
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
And I think there's a slight delay for the chat, but we'll catch up with them as we move on.
Yeah.
All right, acceptance, embracing differences among us and within us. That is so important for a community to thrive because not everybody's the same. And it's really important to make room for those differences and not just make room for them, but to acknowledge them and celebrate them and allow those to be a reason for your own differences to be celebrated. And I feel like that's really important in any community I'm a part of. And it's not always there. I think this one's a tough one. But hopefully TLE fosters that for most people, at least. How do you guys feel about that?
Definitely.
Do you feel accepted at TLE? Anybody here need to speak up?
I'd be curious how the people with a goal of acceptance feel about acceptance at TLE.
Oh,
I have a goal of acceptance.
me too.
Me too.
I'm going to say I don't always feel accepted. This is why I brought it up earlier, because I feel like it's my insecurities. And also because I get it in my head that people are more interested than Michael and I'm just sort of in the way. So like I start spiraling and like, well, I got to lie low. I got to just do my job. Nobody's really interested in me as a friend and I also to keep my distance because I can't get really close to everybody because then it kind of like takes away from the validation opportunities. Because if I know everything about somebody, then it's harder for Michael to talk about them. And so it's like, I have my internal issues about the acceptance part because of my goal of acceptance.
I came to TLE because of Michael, but I stayed because of you. So
My God.
I love you.
I think that's true for a
That's
lot
spot
of
on.
people.
That's so true.
I think that's true
That
for
is
a lot
so
of people.
sweet.
That's a really nice way of putting it. That was nice. That made my little heart flutter. Well, I wasn't trying to get people to console me or anything.
I know,
but
it's
yeah.
true.
Kate,
But
how do you
asking
feel?
like the goal of acceptance, yeah, it does maybe amplify things.
You have acceptance as well, Kate?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, Troy, I mean, first of all, Ro, yes, I completely second that. Like, you don't. I know it's hard. I did the same. I have the same kind of insecurity when it comes to sharing personal content on TLE, because, and I had this too on the old website a lot more than currently, which I think goes to show I feel like this new hub is so much more encouraging to be like vulnerable in ways that is beyond just the Michael content. At least that's how I feel. And
Well,
that,
nice.
yeah, that in the insecurity of like not wanting to be, not wanting to, well, I don't know, like accept myself as like, I, it's really hard to put into words what I'm trying to say, but I feel like the acceptance part does come from within, because I don't always accept the fact that I go on TLE for non-Michael things. Does that make sense?
Oh.
Like it's evolved to be past, it's evolved for me to feel like it's so important to like get to know people for who they are beyond just what we go to and seek from in sessions.
Yes.
And that's hard to accept because the root of it isn't necessarily that, but it is, because it started with you and your friends finding out more growth for each other too. So
Yeah.
And maybe if you're acknowledging that you're going to the site to learn more about other people, it requires you to give more of yourself to those other people.
yeah,
That's
it
good.
does. It totally does.
I really like that you said that, Kate, because that was the entire my philosophy behind the shift in the platforms, because we were evolving into a community that was more about the Michael teachings has become an ambiance, like it's integrated for most people in the core of the community. It's a part of their lives. That's not going to stop. But what needed to be fostered more, I think, was friendships and connecting and have an easier way to access each other and share in ways that are daily. Like some people,
the teachings
some
in practice,
kind of
I
were
feel.
against that. Like, I don't need another social media platform. It's like, well, this isn't another social media platform. Most of the other social media platforms are about announcing things. But on TLE, it's about sharing things. And I really hope that people start to see it that way and take it from that. And that's part of this acceptance being nurtured and fulfilled, this need.
That's why I like when you ask, you have those questions that you pose.
Oh, the polls?
Yes. And people, because you really get to know people in just sometimes really tiny little snippets of information, really open up who somebody is.
Bobby, if you see any comments specific to any of the needs, please highlight those.
Okay, I will.
Because I see some. I'm just wondering.
You want me to go? You want me to jump in now? I thought we were still talking. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, you can put it up there.
Okay, well, Carrie has some stuff about acceptance.
All right.
She says acceptance is totally vital. What happens in fat communities is that supersized folks start a group out of necessity to help each other find resources. But then smaller fat people find out about it and end up taking over the group, and they push out the super fats.
Oh, what?
There's no acceptance, so it becomes something toxic to the people who started the group. I've seen that happen over.
That sucks.
Wow.
That sucks. That's a difficult one to navigate too, because you think the solution is, well, then we're just going to have super fat groups. But I'm sure like super fat groups are the groups that are made inclusive. Like, okay, we can include everybody. And then they get shafted. That's tough.
I mean, I think it just goes to show that even within communities of oppressed or prejudiced against groups, like there might still be levels of prejudice or levels.
Oh, there's hierarchies, yeah.
There are hierarchies, right?
Yeah.
And then Stephen Mary Douglas, I'm assuming it's Mary, says, many times I have not felt accepted to do my belief system, rather like a square peg in a round hole.
Oh, yeah. All right, the next one is freedom. Understanding and honoring the structure and guidelines that support our individual uniqueness. So freedom is necessary need that needs to be fulfilled. So people have room. They have room. And part of what contributes to freedom, which I have learned over the years, is structure. Surprisingly, when there are guidelines in place for a community, when there are clear parameters, it really gives people more freedom because they know where the lines are, where they are possibly causing trouble and when they're not. So it's always really important, I think, to have guidelines, structure it as a form of fostering freedom. I mean, freedom, sometimes people think of it as, just like having no structure, no limitations. But I think freedom is much more fulfilling when you are able to navigate without hitting walls.
Mm.
Do you all feel like you have freedom on TLE?
I think you asking that question is like
Oh,
like a mirror to exactly what you just said. Like, I didn't know how to respond to the prompt, and then you asked the question. I went, oh, now we have the freedom to speak.
oh, oh yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the way that this new hub is set up, the way that it's so intuitive, and there's just like it brain work, like the way that we have individual blogs, and then there's a blog for just sessions for like everybody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, is, I think, helps people be freely choosing where to post and where and what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely freedom in that regard, because I can't. One of the things that prompted me to create to have the library separate is because one of the things that happened on the old site is that everything got really drowned out and like jumbled together, and it was really hard to search for things that were a part of the library because there was a lot of conversations attached to them. And so now we have that separate so that no matter what you're searching for, it's only library material. But on TLE, you can post whatever you want, wherever you want, and it's there for it to have a messy discussion. And it's not going to take away anything from anybody who still wants to have that information, because it'll be in the library if they can't find it on the regular site. Yeah, I wanted to have like a shared blog, shared dream blog, and then people wanted their own blogs. And I'm like, let's give the people what they want. So I always try to make sure there's freedom within like my capacity to sustain it.
But also having the structure of posting in certain areas, like maybe you're posting animal companion photos and stuff. You don't have to have a feeling of uncomfortableness that you're bombarding people
Right.
with something that they're not going to want to see. Because if you're not joined that part to have it as a notification or something that's going to show up for you, then you're not going to see it. So it also gives you the freedom to be able to post and not feel like you're invading or anybody or bombarding with anything that they don't want to see.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of power of control in the community. I still got to get people to understand how much they have, because yeah.
And I think structure and guidelines aren't antithetical to the concept of freedom. I think they help distinguish freedom from chaos, right? Like, chaos means there's no rules, there's no framework, it's haphazard, and everything's happening everywhere all at once, right? I almost named that movie. But freedom, when you have, it's kind of like our country, right? You have the Constitution, you have established laws. Like there's precedent that level sets or is supposed to level set the playing field so that everyone understands what the tools and resources are. Everyone understands the rules by which we're all supposed to operate. And within that, it sort of ensures that everyone's equal. And I'm saying that realizing how effed up that actually is currently in certain situations right now. But it creates a groundwork, like Cypress was saying. You have all of the different channels, all of the different topical locations through which you can express your freedom, right? as opposed to if you just created one site where everyone dumps everything, it would be utter chaos and you would never be able to find or navigate through anything that way.
So that brings us to the next need.
Hold on, I just want to
Expression.
Maureen, another way that Maureen pointed out, like Saturn comes before Uranus for a reason. Like,
Oh my God, there's a joke in there somewhere.
there's a natural order to things that we, like.
So our next need is expression, the commitment to being ourselves and encouraging others to do the same. So every community needs to provide a room for expression, differences of expression. And I've always, this is behind the scenes insight, but for like TLE12, and maybe it is in the guidelines, I'm not sure, but I was like, there's a big difference between calling somebody out because they're annoying and calling people out because they're breaking a guideline. There are some really annoying people. And I am perfectly fine with annoying people because that's just differences. Like, it's a different way of communicating. It's a different style. It's a different tone or a different approach. And sometimes it irritates me. Sometimes it like rubs me the wrong way. I never get upset about those things because those are just like, oh, whatever. So that's one of the things that I thought was so important about managing TLE as a community, is making sure that no one was called out for just being annoying. If you're harassing, causing trouble, breaking guidelines, that's one thing. But sometimes people just have ways of thinking and expressing, and got to make room for it. And that betters us as people too, to be able to navigate that, I think, as long as they're not hurting somebody.
And for all you know, you're annoying to that person.
Oh, please. I know I'm annoying.
No, I mean, but like, It's not necessarily that it's one directional, right? Like,
right. Exactly.
You might be considered annoying to the person that you think is annoying. So it's differences in personalities.
Yeah, you got to have room for expression. Differences of expression.
Maybe differences in frequencies,
Yeah, that's true too. All right, moving on. We've got peace. So power. Power is really important for individuals to have within a community. To some extent, they have to be able to be empowered or have power. So in this case, being present and aware of the impact of our actions and choices is the way I chose to emphasize it as a factor for our community. Because Michael describes the power mode as being present. Like, you're really just aware and present in your actions and aware of their impact. And so in that case, it's really important for everybody to not only recognize their power in the sense that they can hurt other people or they can help other people, but also to empower people to have an impact and to make a difference and to see the consequences of choices in positive ways. So that's how I feel like power is played out in TLE. Anybody? Do you feel powerful or empowered?
Girl.
You're like asleep.
This one kind of confuses me. I don't know why, but like, it feels very individual, and maybe that's the point. But I could also feel the like community as a whole being powerful in itself.
Okay, so the way I take that is think about it like, for instance, the right to vote. Having that power is a power in a world or in a country. Having the power to make your own choices, blah blah blah. But in TLE, I try to make room for everybody's voices to influence my choices, because I never feel like I am a dictator for the community. Like, I may have to make some choices that people don't agree with, but I take a long time getting feedback. I ask for feedback. I ask for people to chime in, almost to the point of being annoying to some people, I'm sure. But that's the way I feel like the power is supported in this community, is that people feel like they have a say. And
Mhm.
whether I go with it or not ultimately is something I have to make I have to make those choices, but I listen, and people's feedback is really important, and I hope that people feel that in
I think
TLE.
a good way to think of power in this case is it's not about control, but there's a power in self-awareness, knowing that how I present myself or how I engage with others in the community is influential in and of itself. Having that understanding about what I bring to the community empowers me to make better choices in terms of how I navigate the community and how I interact with people, hopefully.
Yeah.
That self-awareness makes a difference.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
the next
That's clear. Go. Yes.
The next one is exchange. So exchange basically means that you're not just talking at people or just listening to somebody lecture. There's an exchange. There's information being exchanged. There's feelings being exchanged. There's something being traded between each other, not in a negative way, but like you're just there to share. That's why I was like, it's not like other social media platforms where you're just announcing things. On TLE, hopefully there's a feeling of sharing things. So giving and receiving meaningful interactions and socializing. So I feel like that's a really big factor on TLE.
I agree. I think that's and it's also one of the best ways for us to learn, especially if you try to utilize the Michael teachings going through your day and what have you. And obviously, I am comfortable with my overleaves. I understand how a lot of things work for a lot of that, but there are a lot of times when someone who's maybe a scholar in reserve mode or something would, give their feedback about how they see something, and it's going to be so different than from my perspective. And I love having that information. I love having that different perspective. And that's one of the greatest parts of TLE.
Yeah, like Troy, when you were talking about some ways in which you've tried to design this to be a different type of social media platform, even though there is a sense of exchange or maybe engagement, like with other places, really, I feel like first and foremost, Facebook, you have your profile, Instagram, you have your profile, even Twitter. It first starts off with self-promotion, right? You post, you promote your life, you promote things about you, and yes, there might be a commentary that unfolds because of that, but it's first about like putting yourself out there in a way. And it doesn't feel like that necessarily is the case with TLE. It's not necessarily about marketing yourself or promoting yourself, but it's about trying to understand how you relate to others, or like Cypress was saying, in hearing about or learning about other people's, how does that apply to my life, or how can I adopt some of those ideas for my own life. The give and take feels much more organic, I think, from the get-go with TLE.
I like that you say that, because that's the way I feel like most social media platforms, it's basically saying, here's what's happening in my life. Here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I'm eating. But on TLE, I feel like people are sharing because they're like, I want to hear what people think about this or feel about this. And I want to share this important experience, this, private dream. It just feels much more intimate and vulnerable. Any comments on any of the needs yet?
I think this comment was going back to some of the safe words with maybe freedom or expression about abrading overleaves. Like sometimes you may encounter people where it's the overleaves and the friction between overleaves that might explain why you don't necessarily get along with each other. But I think that's where Maureen was coming from with that. Stephen Mary Douglas says, kindness is the highest power I can think of. And I'm glad they say kindness and not nice, because I feel like there's a difference. Like there's a difference between being nice and truly being kind. Right?
I agree. That's why my Twitch crew is called the Kindness Crew, because it's important. Kindness is one of my favorite things in the world.
And then Carrie says, so far I'm seeing the lack of these points in a few communities. These reflect reasons why so many communities lack cohesion and break down.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, that's exactly right. If these 9 needs were like a part of every person's awareness in building a community, it's really easy to like check the community, make sure these things are happening for them. So moving on, adventure, remembering to play and have fun. That's a huge important part for me. That's one of the reasons why we also made this move, is because I wanted people to have fun exchanging, not just studying and like applying, and like those things are important too, but it's also fun to share that you went to a concert, and it's also to have everybody like celebrate your experience with that, and to ask questions about it, and to, I don't know, just bring something more adventure, like unexpected. It doesn't have to be within a certain context. It can be anything. That's the way I feel like adventure plays out and is fostered.
I feel like that's the most important need of sages in a community.
It is.
Yes,
Yes.
and this is a sage year, and I find it interesting that we are kind of like the move is in full blown here in this year, and I feel I feel that this new TLE site really nurtures that social aspect that is so needed, so valuable. And of course, I remember when I came to TLE in 2016, I was mostly studying and kind of keeping to myself, also because the site kind of was like, oriented to that study and the blogs and the lots of text. But now I feel like I'm practicing the teachings more, and I also want to experience the teachings together with others. Like, we are the living teaching, and it's like we are channeling all that in our interactions, in our opinions, in our discussions. So it's not like we are separating the study from the play. No, it's all together now. It's kind of like fun and alive. I love that.
Yes, very alive. I love that. That's the adventure. Communication. Obviously, there has to be clear communication in a community. Watching, talking, and listening to each other and treating each other as real people. Especially in a virtual community, it's really easy to forget that there are people on the other end of your messaging. And it's not even that you forget that there are people there. It's easy to just say what you want to say without considering the people. You can't see them. You don't know how to gauge your audience as well. I've had to learn a lot about that over the years, because I used to think just saying it was enough because I was being clear. But now people hear things differently, and you have to kind of learn how to speak in a way that is more inviting and less abrasive. And I've had to learn how to do that, and I'm still learning. But as a need in the community, communication is priority on TLE. Everybody's got to have a freedom to post, say what they want to say.
This is probably one of the more challenging ones for me, because I do feel, out of these, watching, talking, and listening, I feel like my best asset is the listening, and I tend to gravitate more towards that and letting other people speak or take the limelight. And also maybe it's because I'm in observation mode that I tend to sort of sit back and sort of observe the community happen rather than actively participate in the community happening. It's harder and I think it's also because I'm artisan, it's harder for me to necessarily want to verbally, or I guess it's not verbal on the site, but like engage with people through dialogue and discussion, because sometimes so much of what I'm thinking, it's not so much what I'm thinking, but just more what I'm feeling, and it's not always easy for me to articulate feelings through typing it out,
Right.
So this is probably one where I need to empower myself to play a larger role, communicating more rather than just sort of seeing others communicating within the community.
Well, that's fine, but this goes back to expression and our differences. These are different. We express things differently, so no one should ever feel. This is a really important point that you bring up. No one should feel like they have to communicate. It just needs to be there if they need to communicate.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, I think my safe zone is to play a more passive observational role. But if I really want to get the most out of this or any community, I can play a more active role.
Mhm.
And it's about
Yeah.
maybe it's about acceptance, kind of like what Kate was saying too. Just I'm of value, and there's things about me worth contributing to the community, and to put more of myself out there. And
I would love that because you have really keen insights a lot of times in our conversations. That'd be great.
But the great thing is you can do that when you want to, when you're ready, when you feel it's important. That's the wonderful thing. And, you know, even though as someone who's not as good a listener and much better at talking, I appreciate people like you. But I also, even in the community, I find myself listening more, like reading things about people. And sometimes I comment, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just take it in and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I'm glad I got to hear that. So it's really nice that we have the options to do whatever works for us in that moment.
Yeah. And we also have the option to be the receivers to it. Like,
Yeah.
and knowing that it's so cool to know, because I feel like all of these points are being so meaningfully integrated into our community, being able to just embody all of it so that the freedom to express and communicate what you want is there. There's also equally that freedom to express and communicate responses to everything, which is the facilitation of it all. And Bobby, I would love to see anything you post.
I know, right?
Anything. I want to hear your music and all of it.
oh, that's so sweet.
Oh.
I get so self-conscious about lots of things because I'm just not used to putting the spotlight on myself.
Well, the last one is expansion. So, Bobby, you can get on that wagon. So, helping each other and ourselves to grow as a result of our social interactions. That's the way I framed it for our community. But it's just basically, if you're a part of a community, you have to feel like you're allowed to grow, and that you're being encouraged to grow, and that you're safe to grow. All that stuff. But it's just all about becoming more because of being a part of that community. And I feel like that as part of TLE, and I hope other people do too. But it should be making people feel like they're better together. Was the theme for this season.
Interesting statement. Better together.
Yeah.
Better together.
Yeah. So this is another thing that's interesting to think about, is that even though all these 9 needs need to be provided for a community to be sustainable and happy and healthy, 3 of these will be your priorities. So, and usually those become important because they're lacking in other places, or they're just more important to you because you need them, because that's why they're called needs. So it's really interesting to look through and see, like, oh, what is the most important, or which of these needs is the most used, or like you go back to those the most. You don't have to answer that question now, but that's just something to look at, because it tells you a lot about yourself in seeing which needs you gravitate towards in getting from that community. So we've used up most of our time, but I did want to make sure everybody in the little pocket of viewers has a voice too. So if anybody has anything to say, we're going to be wrapping up, and I'd love to hear your comments on this. And if you have any problems remembering these terms: security, acceptance, freedom, expression, power, exchange, adventure, communication, expansion, just remember safe peace. Easy peasy.
You know, one thing I was thinking of, even though there are 9 of these, and it doesn't fall into the 7 of the roles, some of these feel very synonymous with specific roles. Like the whole adventure thing, I feel like that's Sage's, and that's like you and Cypress in a nutshell. And like the security feels like very warrior to me. The one about power feels there's something like a king aspect to it. And I'm wondering, for people in certain roles, going through these 9 needs, do certain ones stick out to them because it does just by nature correlate to their role in some way. I wonder if I'm kind of fascinated to know how people are if they're finding those relationships within the needs.
I think so, because like for Sage, communication's important, expression's important. You know, there's definitely going to be some that are important. I think exchange is my priority. There has to be a sense of value in the interactions. Like, I don't like just small talk. I don't like noise. I don't like just people. I mean, I don't mind it, but as a community, it feels like it's really important to have value in the exchange. And I feel like that every time I read something somebody posts. However, even the social stuff, just the everyday social stuff, like the memes, like I know that means something to somebody, and I get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Steve and Mary Douglas say communication is an art form in itself.
Facts.
That's true.
Carrie says for her, the important ones are exchange and expansion and security.
Oh, okay.
Most important. Christian.
Yeah, did off the top of your head, do any of you on the panel have your obvious top three?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It immediately adventure and exchange and power.
Oh.
Ooh, that's
the one that she was
there.
confused about. She's taken and run with.
I think it's one of the Michael sessions I had a while ago was talking about the freeing of chief features. And I think maybe, and that was because I was asking, am I a king role? Because I felt so like I don't know, I don't have words for it, but it just felt like this. And they said that's probably because freeing chief features means that you're allowing so much more to come through and to focus and like orient towards. And that's just kind of, yeah.
Oh, wow. Anybody else have their three obvious ones?
Well, for me, obviously adventure as well, and exchange, because I, just like you, Troy, it's very important for it to have like some kind of value. And even if it is something silly, there's value to me in silly, and probably more than a lot of other things, because I like silly. Yeah. But and also, of course, expression. I really think that they're just, to be able to be myself and to express that and to feel comfortable about it.
Ro?
I really like expansion because it has that feeling of, helping each other become our favorite selves, and grow together. That's beautiful. And of course, adventure, because I want to have more fun and, play and sorry, my brother was talking here. But yeah, expansion, adventure, and also I would say expression. I love to see our differences, our ways of being, our personalities, and it adds so much richness to the community. So yeah, that's beautiful.
I think security, acceptance, and exchange are my top three.
Yeah, I think security and first of all, I feel like they probably change throughout our
Oh, they do, yeah.
For right now in our country, with the political climate being what it is, and like the rise of a lot of hate and hate crime, I feel security and acceptance are important to me right now. And then probably either exchange or expression. To me, those two are very similar, but those would be like the top 3 or 4.
Yeah. Any comments from viewers before we move on?
Yeah, Christian was saying safety and security are 2 sides of the same coin for him.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen said communication is also important to Mercury body types.
That resonates.
Mercury was the messenger of the gods, so that kind of makes sense with communication.
Yeah, but that's I think that's commenting on the correlations, like some of these might be tied to certain overleaves or role or.
And then Maureen, I was actually wondering this myself when I was saying that they probably shift throughout our lifetime, because I know the personal 9 needs throughout our lifetime shift.
Yeah.
Right? But Maureen is saying they likely align with our personal 9 needs.
They might. I would have to think about that because, like Bobby said, like security is something I've never been distracted by to a fault. Until I met Bobby, I had no security in my life. Like it was something that I was raised without, and I never knew was possible. And so it was always a priority that was forced on me because like you can't survive without security to some extent. So I was always having to do it, but I never knew it was something I could nurture and have. But it was never like at the top of my consciousness. But like you said, because of things the way they are now, it's like high on my priority list now of needs, because it's not just for me, it's for everybody I know. Like there's so many people who are in more need of it than I am. And like, I've got to be a part of providing that. I've got to be a part of holding that space. So yeah, it's become a real weird for me to have that as a priority need. That's definitely changed for me. Good call, Maureen. So my point being that security in my everyday life and in the community, yes, they correlate definitely.
Yeah.
So, hey, everybody, this was our first episode of season 3. It started off with a little bumpiness, and I appreciate everybody rolling with it. And I think we had a pretty good show, good discussion about community and TLE. And I hope everybody has a good weekend. I think we can wrap up here. Thanks for hanging out, everybody.
Are there any thoughts or teasers you want to give about what next month's topic might be?
I don't really want to do it because who knows what'll happen between now and then, but let me look and see what I wrote would be the topic.
I think it'd be fun to get people starting to think about it.
All right, let's see what is it?
I think it's part of the energy.
I've got it here. Next, goal of discrimination. We're going to be talking about the goal of discrimination, and we will have panelists on. So if you have a goal of discrimination, let us know. We might have you on the show.
Very fun.
So thank you for watching and supporting. Please give a like, subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel. And I don't have an outro for us, so it's just going to be us doing little hearts.
Practicing the hearts. Bobby, what's that?
There we go.
Yay!
There we go.
Yay!
My hand.
There we go. Kate got a little green screened out.
We choreographed that, okay?
Oh, thank you all. We'll see you next month.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,